One important achievement was the publishing of the Mail Transfer Protocol, that is MTP, which was first defined in RFC 772 in September 1980. Then it was updated in RFC 780 in May 1981. MTP describes a set of commands and procedures by which two devices can connect using TCP to exchange email messages. Its operation is described largely using elements borrowed from two early TCP/IP application protocols that were already in use at that time. They are Telnet and FTP. The commands of MTP are in fact based directly on those of FTP. There wasn't anything inherently wrong with basing email delivery on something like FTP, but defining it this way made MTP somewhat of a hack. It was also restricted to the capabilities defined by FTP, a general file transfer protocol. So, it was not possible to include features in the protocol that were specific to sending and receiving mail. Due to the importance of email, a specific protocol designed for the purpose of delivering email was warranted. This protocol was first defined in RFC 788 and is published in November 1981. The name of this protocol is the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, that is SMTP. As the name suggests, that SMTP is simpler than the non-simple MTP that it replaced. Whether this is true or not is somewhat a matter of opinion. I do note that RFC 788 is 61 pages long, while the earlier RFC 780 was only 43 pages. What SMTP definitely has over MTP is elegance. The protocol is designed specifically for the transport of electronic mail. While it retains certain similarities to FTP, it is an independent protocol running over TCP. So, from a conceptual standpoint, it can be considered simpler than MTP. In terms of mechanics, the process SMTP uses to transfer an email message is indeed rather simple, especially compared to some other protocols. RFC 788 described the operation of SMTP carrying email messages corresponding to the ARPANET text message standard as described in RFC 733. Development of both email messages and the SMTP protocol continued, of course. In August 1982, a milestone in TCP/IP email was achieved when RFCs 821 and 822 were published. RFC 821 revised SMTP and became the defining standard for the protocol for the next 2 decades. RFC 822, its companion standard, became the standard for TCP/IP electronic mail messages carried by SMTP. SMTP extensions and revisions. As the 1980s progressed and TCP/IP and the Internet both grew in popularity, SMTP gradually overtook other methods to become the dominant method of email message delivery. For a number of years, the protocol was used mostly as is, with no new RFCs published to define new versions or formally change its behavior. This changed in February 1993 when RFC 1425 SMTP service extensions was published. As the name suggests, this standard describes a process for adding new capabilities to extend how SMTP works while maintaining backward compatibility with existing systems. SMTP with these extensions is sometimes called Extended SMTP or eSMTP. As development of SMTP continued, RFC 1425 was revised the RFC 1651 in July 1994 and then RFC 1869 in November 1995. Along with these, a number of other RFCs defining particular SMTP extensions such as pipelining and message size declaration were defined. In April 2001, another major milestone in TCP/IP email was reached when revisions of RFC 821 and RFC 822 were published. As RFCs 2821 and RFC 2822 respectively. Both documents are consolidations of updates and changes that had been made to RFC 821 and 822 between 1982 and 2001. RFC 2821 is the current base standard for SMTP. It incorporates the base protocol description from RFC 821 and the latest SMTP extensions as defined in RFC 1869. Perhaps more importantly, it updates the description of the email communication model to reflect the realities of modern TCP/IP networks, especially the email features built into the domain name systems, that is DNS. SMTP communication and message transport methods with client-server rules and terminology. The TCP/IP electronic mail communication model describes the way email messages are conveyed from the sender to the recipient. In most cases, this involves the sender's client machine sending the email to its local SMTP server, which in turn sends it to the recipient's local SMTP server, and finally to the recipient's local host. All of these steps except for the last one are performed by SMTP. In fact, the overall email communication model is largely described by the RFC 821 and 2821 SMTP standards. The initial communication takes place between the sender's client machine and a local SMTP server that the sender is allowed to access. After submission of the email message, that SMTP server becomes responsible for delivering the message to the SMTP server responsible for the recipient's mailbox. There are two different ways that this can be happen. Early email communication using relaying. In the first year of electronic mail, when RFC 821 and its predecessors were initially defined, the internet was very different than it is today. There was no domain name system, and this made electronic mail delivery complex because there was no way to map a mailbox address to the IP address of the SMTP server that managed that mailbox. Also, there were many proprietary networks connected to the internet, which meant that it was not always possible for any given system to communicate with any other. Keeping in this mind, then how could email be delivered? The most common way in the early days of SMTP was through a process called relaying. SMTP routing information was included along with the email address to specify a sequence of SMTP servers that the mail should be relayed through to get to its destination. For example, if a sender using SMTP server A wanted to send email to someone whose mailbox was on SMTP server Z, then they might have needed to specify that the mail be sent through intermediate SMTP servers at sites D, P, and U to get there. An SMTP connection would be established from A to D to send the message on one leg of its journey. Then it would go from D to P and P to U and then U to Z. The process is analogous to how IP routing works, but at the application layer. You can probably see the problems with this quite easily. It's cumbersome and requires many devices to handle the mail, results in delays in communication, and also requires the communication of source routers between SMTP servers. It was certainly functional but far from ideal. Modern email communication using DNS and direct delivery. The creation of DNS radically changed how email delivery worked. DNS includes support for a special mail exchange record that allows easy mapping from the domain name in an email address to the IP address of the SMTP server that handles mail for that domain. In the new system, SMTP communication is much simpler and more direct. The sending SMTP server uses DNS to find the MX record of the domain to which the email is addressed. This gives the sender the DNS name of the recipient's SMTP server. This is resolved to an IP address, and a connection can be made directly from the sender's SMTP server to the recipients to deliver the email. While SMTP still supports relaying direct email delivery using MX records is faster and more efficient, and RFC 2821 makes clear that this is now the preferred method. In this new system, SMTP is generally only used for two transfers. First, from the sender's client machine to the sender's local SMTP server, and then from that server to the recipient's local SMTP server. Figure shows the details. Each transfer of an email message between SMTP servers involves the establishment of a TCP connection and then the transfer of the email headers and body using the SMTP mail transfer process. SMTP connection and session establishment and termination. The delivery of electronic mail using the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, that is SMTP, involves the regular exchange of email messages between SMTP servers. SMTP servers are responsible for sending email that users of the server submit for delivery. They also receive email either intended for local recipients or in some cases for forwarding or relaying to other servers. Overview of connection establishment and termination. All SMTP communication is done using the TCP. This allows SMTP servers to make use of TCP's many features that ensure efficient and reliable communication. SMTP servers generally must be kept running and connected to the internet 24 hours a day and 7 days a week to ensure that mail can be delivered at any time. This is a big reason why most end users employ access protocols such as POP3 to access their received email rather than running their own SMTP servers. The server listens continuously on the SMTP server port, that is well-known port number 25, for any TCP connection request from other SMTP servers. An SMTP server that wishes to send email normally begins with a DNS lookup of the MX record corresponding to the domain name of the intended recipient's email address. To get the name of the appropriate SMTP server, this name is then resolved to an IP address. For efficiency, this IP address is often included as an additional record in the response to the MX request to save the sending server from needing to perform two explicit DNS resolutions. The SMTP sender then establishes a SMTP session with the SMTP receiver. Once the session is established, mail transaction can be performed to allow mail to be sent between the devices. When the SMTP sender is done, it terminates the connection. All of these processes involve specific exchange of commands and replies, which are illustrated in the figure. Connection establishment and greeting exchange. Let's take a look at these processes in more detail. Starting, of course, with SMTP session establishment. The SMTP sender begins by initiating a TCP connection to the SMTP receiver. The sending SMTP server uses an ephemeral port number since it is playing the role of the client in the transaction. Assuming that the server is willing to accept a connection, it will indicate that it is ready to receive instruction from the client by sending reply code 220. This is called the greeting or service ready response. It commonly includes the full domain name of the server machine, the version of the SMTP server software it is running, and possibly other information. Now, it would be rude for the server acting as a client to just start sending commands to the responding server without saying hello first, wouldn't it? So, that's exactly what comes next. The client says hello. In the original SMTP protocol, this is done by issuing a hello command, which includes the domain name of the sending, that is client SMTP server, as a courtesy. The receiving device then responds back with the return hello message using an SMTP reply code 250. Connection termination. When the sending device is finished sending all the email it has to transfer to the receiving device and done with all other activities, it terminates the session by issuing the quit command. This normally results in a 221, that is goodbye message from the SMTP receiver saying something like closing transmission channel. Then the TCP connection is terminated. A server may also terminate prematurely in special cases. If it is given a local command to shut down, it may respond to any routine command with a 4 to 1 response. A server is not supposed to terminate a session simply due to receipt of an invalid command. However, only in special cases where session termination cannot be avoided,